You all know you got midterm 5 today and during the laboratory period, and I don't know, you're probably wishing you could devote this hour to just studying for it, because I know that no matter how much people study over the weekend for an exam, they still want to study some more. And so what I'm going to try to do is, I do want to cover population genetics today here in lecture, but I don't think it'll take up all of the period. So if we have a few minutes at the end, we'll just get out early, and I'll stay around if you want to ask me any questions related to today's midterm. I'll be glad to stay around and answer those. Anyway, so we might be able to get out a few minutes early. The stuff I'm covering today on population genetics is from the genetics chapter, but the population genetics stuff I'm covering today will not be on midterm number 5 today. Other stuff from the genetics chapter will be on there, like genetic diseases and sex-linked traits and chromosome problems, but not the population genetics that we're going over today. But I will ask you some population genetics questions on the Friday quiz this week and on the final exam. All right, and I'll also want to say that before we get into the details of the population genetics, every semester that I've taught this, I think I've managed to confuse more students with it than just about any other topic, and I must be doing it poorly, because I promise at its heart it makes sense. It's not really that confusing. It shouldn't be that confusing a topic. So I'm going to try approaching it in a slightly different way than I normally do, and hopefully it'll make sense this semester. Okay, well, to begin with, when we've been going through these chapters on genetics, mostly we've been focusing in on the genotypes of individuals, like is this person big Q, or is this person little q, or big Q, little q, something like that. The subject of population genetics is different. It's the study of all the genes and alleles in an entire population. You're sort of looking at all the big Qs and all the little q's that a group of organisms have, not just what the individual members have. And a population is defined as a group of organisms that are in one particular area of the world and that they regularly mate with each other. And human populations, like towns and villages and things like that, don't really fit that definition very well. For instance, the city of Salinas is not a really good population, because people move into the area, people move out of the area. Whether or not they regularly mate with each other, I'm not exactly sure, but the point is that people are coming in and out of the area all the time. For a true population, you do need the organisms to mostly stay in one area and constantly be breeding with each other. You don't want individuals coming into the group or leaving the group to be a true population. And just to give an example of a population that's a little bit more, that fits this definition a little bit better, I'll use the elephant seals. And I'm sure you've seen these or heard of them. They're a large type of seal. They live at various places along the California coast, but let's see, here's Monterey Bay, right? Come on, laser pen. There's Monterey Bay right there, and I guess we're somewhere right around there. There's Santa Cruz, and a little north of Santa Cruz, right around here, just up the coast a little bit, is an area called Año Nuevo. It's a state park, and if you go there and walk out onto the beach, you can see a lot of these critters. These are the elephant seals, and I'm not an expert on elephant seals, but I visited Año Nuevo once, and I know a little bit about them, and they meet this definition of a population. The males and females come to the beach, and then they sit around and mate for a while, and the females will come back later and give birth to their pups and nurse the pups for a while, and then the females will leave and the pups will go into the water and learn to swim for themselves. But what they found out year after year, the same elephant seals always return to this Año Nuevo beach and then begin the life cycle all over again with mating and giving birth, and then the pups go into the water. And so they are a population. They come out of one area and they always mate with each other, and very rarely, if at all, does an individual come in or out of the population. Okay, so if we're talking about a population like this, the true population, we can begin to discuss aspects of the population genetics. And one of the more important aspects is called the allele frequency, or the allele frequencies within that population. And allele frequencies, I defined it here as the percent of a gene in a population that is one particular allele. And to give an example of that, let's say there was some allele that controlled eye color in these elephant seals, and I don't know really what controls eye color in elephant seals, but let's say for the sake of argument that there's two alleles, black and brown, and big B, we'll say, gives you a black eye, is the allele for the black eyes in these elephant seals, and little b is the allele for brown eyes in these elephant seals. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, further that there are 100 elephant seals in this particular population that we're studying. Now, here I gave you the genotypes of these 100 elephant seals that we're studying. I'm going to give you slightly different numbers. For various reasons, I decided I didn't like those particular numbers, but it's still going to be 100 individuals. Gesundheit. Let's say that we study this population of elephant seals, and 6 of them are homozygous dominant for this eye color trait allele. 38 of them are heterozygous for it, and 56 of them are homozygous recessive for it. All right, so that's what we'll say that is the genotypes of this particular population we're studying. The allele frequency, remember, is defined as what portion of the genes for eye color are one particular allele. So if we were to look at this, so there's 100 individuals, think about this. How many alleles does the population contain? If there's 100 individuals, how many alleles are in the population? Well, how many alleles does each individual have? 2, right. Every person owns 2 alleles. They might be 2 of the B's, or there might be 2 big B's, or there might be 1 big B and 1 little B, or there might be 2 little B's. But each individual owns 2 alleles. So the grand total is twice the number of individuals. 100 individuals must equal 200 alleles total in the population. Make sense? If there were 56 individuals we were studying, how many alleles in the population? 112, right. If we were talking about 56 individuals in the total population, every individual has 2 alleles, so you'd have 112. If there were 150 individuals in the population, how many alleles total? 300, right. However many individuals there are, you always have twice that number of alleles because every individual has 2 alleles. Okay, so remembering that we're focusing on the alleles now, so there's 200 alleles in the population. If I were to say, what's the frequency of the dominant allele, which I'm going to write like that, frequency of the dominant allele, it's going to be something out of 200, because that's the total number of alleles in the population. How many big B alleles are there in the population? Can answer me that. How many large B alleles are floating around in this population? 50 is correct. How many large B alleles are in these individuals? 12, right? Everybody see why? Because each individual here holds 2 big B alleles, And so if there's 6 individuals who are big B, there must be 12 big Bs from those guys. How many big Bs are in these individuals? Each individual here only holds 1 big B allele. So there's 38 big B alleles there. How many big B alleles are in these individuals? None. They don't have any big B alleles. So if we total up the big B alleles, it's 50. You see that? So if the individual is homozygous dominant for a certain allele, you have to double that number of alleles because they hold 2 of that allele. But if they're heterozygous, you only count them as having 1 of that allele. All right, so there's 50 big B alleles in this population out of 200 total. And so what's our percentage there? You do it in your head. And feel free to bust out a calculator if that'll help you for these. It turns out to be 25% in this case. That is an allele frequency calculation. You find out the percent of all the alleles in the population, what percentage of them are one particular allele. And a little bit later on in today's lecture, it's going to make things more mathematically easier to handle if we write our percents as decimals. So in other words, instead of writing the percent like that, I'm going to write 0.25. Okay, who can calculate for me what the frequency of the recessive allele is in this population? Not 150. Well, okay, I see where you're going. Yeah, 150 is part of the calculation, but that's not the answer of what percentage it is out of the 200. 75%. Right. So let's look over here. How many little b alleles do these 38 guys have? 38, right? Each individual of these 38 holds 1 little b allele. So there's 38 little b's. How many little b's are held by these individuals? Looks like 112, because each individual holds 2 little b alleles in this group, in these homozygous recessive guys. So that's 112 little b's from those guys. And again, there's that principle. If someone's homozygous for an allele, you have to count them as having twice as many of that allele. 56 times 2 is 112. And so when I add those up, there we go. There's 150 little b alleles in this population. So 150 little b alleles out of the 200 total alleles is going to give me 75%, which I want to write like that. All right. So there is how you figure the allele frequency of the dominant allele and the allele frequency of the recessive allele. And lastly, since those are only 2 alleles, all alleles are either dominant or recessive, they have to add up to 1, or 100% if you want to think about it that way. Just like in this classroom, everybody's either male or female, and so we might total up how many of each, but that has to add up to 100%. It has to add up to 1, so to speak. So you can say the frequency of the big allele plus the frequency of the little allele is always going to come out to 1. Like number of percentage of males and the percentage of females in any room is going to always come out to 1. Sound all right so far? All right. Okay, now for a moment, forget the allele frequencies. Let me write these over here. These are allele frequencies on this side of the chalkboard. On this side of the chalkboard, we're going to talk about something different now, genotype frequencies. And so the genotype frequencies, which I didn't put in your notes, but I should have, are just what percentage of the population holds any particular genotype. There's really only 3 genotypes: homozygous dominant, heterozygous, or homozygous recessive. What percentage of the population is homozygous dominant? 6%, right? Because percent means per 100, and when I gave you this problem, I deliberately chose 100 individuals just to make that the percentages obvious. So 6% are homozygous dominant. And again, I'm going to write the percents as decimals just because it's going to come out a little bit easier mathematically than thinking about them that way. What percentage of the population is heterozygous? 38%, or 0.38. And what percent of the population is homozygous recessive? 56%. So that's pretty easy. Well, it's easy in this case because I made it add up to 100. But be aware, it could give you problems in the future where it doesn't nicely add up to 100. And just to illustrate that, let's say I gave you a